Hi, everyone. I'm doing a follow-up video here on my presentation called Non-Dual Therapy That Works. And this is just to answer some questions and address some comments and to do a little bit of clarification on things that we've covered in that video. So first question or comment, I guess. I found it difficult to follow because of the frequent filler words that replace pauses and space for the concepts and examples to land. So even though there's a clear structure to the presentation and the slides are great, I couldn't hear the structure. It sounded a bit convoluted and rushed. It also sounded pleasantly conversational. I love your tone and use of examples. You clearly have a great depth of knowledge and skill, and I'm really curious about your therapeutic approach now. Okay, so I appreciate your feedback, and let me just address this bit by bit. With regard to frequent filler words, I've got this little joke down here, which is that a minor demerit on my karmic record is the decision to have not followed through with Toastmasters. For those of you who don't know, Toastmasters is a group that you can go to, and with time, they train you out of using filler words like and that sort of thing. There's also technology that does this, and I have yet to master that technology to run my videos through it. But I plan to do that and experiment with it, and we'll see what happens. It's either going to be that or Toastmasters or maybe both. So it sounded a bit convoluted and rushed. With regard to that, I'm really curious as to what you found convoluted and rushed. And you can feel free to comment on that or send me an email. The thing is that in spending an hour and 50 minutes, practically 2 hours covering these concepts, and as you said, giving examples on each one, my intent anyway was to go as in depth into each concept as I needed and take the time to do so that they would just be clear. But I'd be curious to know what you've found convoluted and rushed, and then I can do another video on it. Sounded pleasantly conversational. You have clearly have a great depth of knowledge and skill, and I'm really curious about your therapeutic approach now. I appreciate your feedback, and with regard to my therapeutic approach, I would say it's just an intersection between the realization process, a body-focused pathway to spiritual awakening and psychological healing created by Judith Blackstone, and an experiential, constructivist, humanistic type of psychotherapy and or therapy-informed coaching skill set called coherence therapy. It was created by Bruce Ecker and Laurel Hulley. So you can read more about those if you care to by going to realizationprocess.org and coherencetherapy.org. Okay. Second question. Around minute 17 and 22 seconds, you talk about how therapy might be construed as being incompatible with genuine mindfulness and non-dual experiences, since the former, meaning therapy, consists of acquiring a series of mental beliefs, getting absorbed in thought patterns and narratives around our personal identities. Would you mind elaborating a bit on why you don't really buy this incompatibility? So I believe what this is referencing is when I was talking about how in the non-dual teaching space, there's often I've heard it approached in the following way, that therapy deals with the mind and non-dual spirituality deals with experiences that are beyond the mind and beyond the narrative self. Now, that is kind of true, but also not true. What is it that goes through the experience of awakening? It's the mind-body system. What is it that goes through the experience of transformative psychotherapy when it's at its best? The mind-body system. When there is a samskara in the mind-body system, a latent mental tendency, a subconscious mental model that is not even verbal, so it's not even accurate to call it a story or a narrative. When something like that lives in the mind-body system, what effect does it have? It causes suffering, number one, it operates as kind of an engine that's on in neutral in the background all the time, and it creates triggers downstream that is sort of like the emotional pain of past events getting transposed onto the present. You could call it, I think it's even more accurate to say that it's a mental model that lives in the present, that's resilient to time, and that just it gets kicked up every now and again when a triggering event happens. So what effect does that have? The effect is that you could say it takes up real estate within whatever degree of awakening we have. How do I put this? One of the ways of putting this is that we wake up or we go through awakening experiences that wake up or whereby clusters of the mind are liberated bit by bit. And I don't know, and I don't think there is ever an end to it. And that's just my own personal paradigm. But the argument for that, and I think there's a convincing argument to be made for that, which is that, again, the mental models that we're talking about that are the you could say the target of transformative therapy, these are not verbal, they're not stories. They exist at more of a felt sense energetic level. And that felt sense energetic level is also what gets shifted around in spiritual awakening experiences. So you could say that the subconscious nonverbal mental models that are at that kind of implicit felt sense level of being, those hold our experience askew from deeper levels of awakening. And it's almost like saying, okay, if somebody from non-duality land wants to argue that psychotherapy has nothing to do with awakening, it's sort of like saying, if you go to the gym and lift weights, if you, what's a good analogy here? If you're going to the gym and lifting weights, if you had some compulsive habit of like going to the water cooler every 5 minutes, that would have no effect on you. All right, it would be like that's essentially the argument that you have to make. Of course it's going to get in the way, right? It's going to get in the way of your, let's say, athletic performance. And so it's like, if we want to compare that to spiritual awakening, that's sort of like luminous, unbounded, unbroken awareness that that feels so good and nice and settled and everything. You can have that and at the same time have a mental model that's operating in the background that, for example, makes you very susceptible to accommodating people with narcissistic patterning. I have a friend who told me about this exact experience that she had. So it's just not true. There's so many ways that you can falsify the hypothesis that awakening and transformative therapy have nothing to do with each other. They both involve ontological shifts, which are at that nonverbal felt sense level of being. The nonverbal ontological shift that happens in awakening is the sense of separate self that goes to a sense of no separate self. The ontological shift that happens in most forms of experiential therapy is an unsafe self to a safe self, or a bad self to a good self, or a bad reality to a good reality. And there's really no place where the experiences in the embodied non-dual awakening that are more integrative, that include our heart, that include our sensory faculties, those types of awakenings, there's really no place where those leave off and the healing that we get from psychotherapy begins, and vice versa, because both are means by which we uncover our deepest authenticity. So anyway, I hope that's clear. And if there's more questions on that, just let me know. Okay. This is a question that in watching my own presentation, just to maybe because I'm being a little neurotic and wanting to make sure that everything's clear. And having watched it before I put it up on YouTube, I noticed that I talked about, union with God and, resolving fragmentation or division around our sense of unity with the divine. And there is a question that is approached, or there's an issue I believe that's approached differently depending on the school of mysticism or contemplative practice that one is part of, which is the ground of being the same thing as God? And the answer is that I think that depends on the tradition and the experiences of the individual who is using both of those terms and what they mean by those terms. I believe that there is an active agency that like a centralized active agency that is the intelligence of the universe and that pervades the whole universe, that we could call God. But also, we're part of what that is. And that experience, for me anyway, is a little bit different. It is different, it's texturally different from the experience of a steady state field or space or ground of unbound luminous presence and emptiness. One of those experiences is, you could say it's not active. I don't know how to put this. It's if you experience a deep sense of like equanimity, and you start to go so deep inside that the inside becomes the outside, and you can just feel all of life infused with this kind of kind of spiritual luminosity that seems steady, and that is kind of an unbroken luminous presence and emptiness. That's a different experience than feeling a being or an essence, like a relational other, reach into your experience and convey that it loves you, right? Those are two different things, in my experience at least. I'm going to read you something from a book called The Purpose of Life as Revealed by Near-Death Experiences from Around the World. And this is by a near-death experience researcher named David Sunfellow. And this chapter is called Universal Truths version 2.2. Okay. Based on the core truths presented by near-death experiences from around the world, number one, God exists. Number two, God is an all-knowing, all-powerful being who knows and loves everyone. Number three, words cannot describe how profoundly God loves us or how deeply God is involved in every aspect of our lives. Number four, God loves everyone unconditionally. There is nothing we can say, do, or think that can stop God from loving us. Five, while God, the creator of all life, appears in many forms, he, she, or it is most often experienced as a loving, indescribably wonderful light. Number six, God is also experienced as a vast energy field of love and light. Composed of everything in existence, this divine energy field is alive, sentient, and communicative. So are all the parts that make it up. Number seven, if we go deep enough, we discover that we are God, the source of all life. We are also life in all its manifestations. So, this experience, I feel, is perhaps more common to people who are in the Christian contemplative schools of thought, maybe people who practice Kabbalah, or as the Jewish form of mysticism. Mysticism meaning direct contact with reality, capital R reality. Sufism, certainly. For people who are atheists or agnostic, who are just looking for a steady state of fundamentally well and at ease, fundamentally safe, fundamentally grounded, never wounded, can't be wounded dimension of their own being that feels like it suffuses and pervades all aspects of experience. The experience of fundamental consciousness, as it's called in realization process, the experience of the Dharmakaya, right, as it's called in some schools of Buddhism. Um, what else? There's all sorts of other names that we can give to it. I mean, it's called what is it? I don't remember what it's called in Rigpa, I think, or Buddha nature. So uh, that to me, that is an experience that you can get pretty easily. You can get that pretty easily, and you can rest into it. You can relax into it. It feels like it holds you. It's, again, fundamentally safe, welcoming. It's something that feels more stable than a mountain, and so on and so forth. And it's always there in the background, and you can open to it, and it's there. And there's a bit of active passivity that you need to do in order to get it, right? And really a deep kind of settling that you do, and then it's unveiled. Now, I made a joke here that on one occasion I sent an email to god@god.com and seemed to get a response. So again, I was praying one night, and it was just in bed, and it was just kind of a casual, nothing really that special going on. I mean, I was definitely open, but nothing really I wasn't really doing anything special that I can see. And maybe I just really had relaxed my expectations in that moment. Maybe that was part of it, or I was just lost in the experience a bit of praying. And then something responded back. And I'm saying that something responded back. And again, this is my personal experience, because there was a presence and a power that came through very clearly, that it was like a drop to your knees type of experience. It was profoundly moving, and it felt active. This field that's there in the background, or space, or ground, if you want to give it those metaphors. To me, it doesn't feel active. It feels steady. It feels still. It feels like a stillness that's, you could say, mixed with aliveness, or mixed with a very mixed with what feels like a source dimension of life and being. But there, when people talk about God, usually they are talking about this sort of active agency, or intelligence of the universe, that has an active agency to it. And if you want to get theories on what that is, you can read people like David Sunfellow, who's compiled reports of people with near death experiences, a lot of which are more extensive experiences into deeper realms of consciousness, where that presence really seems to be felt. But you can have an experience of that presence and that power spontaneously in your own life. I'm sure many of you watching this video have. And it is suffused with oneness. It is suffused with stillness, and it's suffused with unconditional love. And again, for me, it felt like a presence and a power beyond what my normal state of consciousness can do. Certainly, I have a therapeutic love for my clients. I feel love for my family and my friends, and nature. This felt like something altogether a higher order, much much deeper than what my normative range of love is and can do. And so it felt like a transcendent kind of intelligence that was deeply loving. And so that's why I'm making a little joke here that I sent an email to god.com and got an answer back. So the answer is, is our ground of being the same as God? Not sure, don't know. They seem to be related fields of being or experiences, but I don't know exactly how they relate. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. And if you have any more questions, just feel free to put them in the comments, and I'll do my best to address them. Thanks.